here I am. I'm doing this as a response to weapons education. As you know, he did a video pretty recently about the katana, and well, here is my katana. It's not cold steel, and yes, I regret it. I got this for $8 off the internet, and the reason it was $8 is because it's from an airsoft company. As you see, the handle here is just some ropes tied together, and it's really cheap to pull out of the blade. Now, the one cool thing about it is there's some sort of Japanese writing on it, or at least it better be Japanese, because if it's Chinese, this is a pathetic sword. Anyways, and how pathetic it was. Notice this is a red handle and a black scabbard. Don't get any blade from an airsoft company. Remember that. Okay, but a katana is made in Japan, and it is not a ninja sword. Most people, if people ask what a katana is, and other people tell them it's a ninja sword, no. A katana is a samurai sword. The ninjas had a naginata, which is slightly shorter, and I think it's slightly thicker in the blade, a little. Might be wrong, but the ninjas had the naginata. This is a katana. Now I'll pull it out of the sheath so I can show you. And this thing isn't really sharp at all, as you can see. I can run my thumb up and down it, not get cut. Like I said, this is just a display one, and this, whatever it's called, is sort of loose. But the katana is one of them. I'd probably call this the most effective sword ever made, because you see, its length varies, but this blade design, how it tapers off here, is known as the Tanto style. Actually, the title actually comes from the samurai's dagger that was about this long that had this blade. It's actually called the Tanto. So every blade design that's called a Tanto blade design that comes after, that has this shape on it, it's called the Tanto blade after the little dagger they have. But anyways, this is so effective. The katana is so effective that it was graded in 1, 2, or 3 body blades, and that is exactly what it sounds like. If you have a graphic imagination and squeamish stomach, you might want to skip like 20, 30 seconds down and skip this. But how they would actually test these blades, see how effective they were, they would line up a bunch of criminals, they would stack criminals on top of each other, take a swing, and that's how they decided if it was a 1, 2, or 3 body blade. That's how effective these are. I mean, if you're an unarmed person, like most samurais fought, if they would fight peasants or whatever, this can easily go through whatever you need it to go through. But if you're fighting an armored person, it's just as effective if you stab it, or if you stab with it. Now, this is a really cool sword, but let me show you, and it's really good to have. I've actually played Fruit Ninja with that. I'll put up a video soon about it, but just take some we just played it with some old squash and bad cucumbers. It's really fun. Even as dull as this thing is, it goes straight through them. That's how effective the katana blade design is. Even when it's dull, it can cut straight through stuff. So, cool blade, but let me show you this is probably the most effective sword ever made. But let me show you what I think is the most practical sword ever made. And that is the Gladius. That's right, you'll notice it is it's shorter than the katana. But let me show you why I think this is more practical than the katana. I'll put the sheath up. See, the Gladius actually is a Roman sword. This was standard issue to every Roman troop, whether he was a centurion, legionnaire, Roman grunt. Just every Roman soldier was issued this sword. This is actually the sword Paul talks about when he talks about the armor of God. That's for some other time. But this sword, in my mind, is the best sword ever made. It's a crime that this sword died away to me. Well, that's partially because the mentality of fighting changed and all that stuff, but if you notice the shape of the blade, you'll notice it's a straight blade. But if you notice, it's thinner here, gets wider, and then tapers off, and then when it's at its fattest, it comes into a point. That makes this sword more practical than the katana, because sure, the katana can cut through more than this can. And by the way, this is blunt too. This is also a display model. I haven't sharpened it. This sword actually is the best. I think it's the best blade design in the world, most practical, because it's double-edged. The katana you had to hold it a certain way, but this you can pick it up the ground either way you want to hold it, and you can still cut. Well, of course you can't cut like this, but you have two ways you can attack. You can attack with a slice, but you can also pull up and still cut somebody or something, you know, if an animal attacks you. But also, when you swing with this, it's so effective that it just cuts through somebody's arm. It can cut through somebody's side. And also, interesting fact, the Roman soldiers were taught to stab with this blade, not cut, but stab. Even though it is most effective, you can cut and be pretty effective. They were taught to stab. I'm sorry I'm going into a history lesson, but this is really really stuff I love right here. This is my first love, ancient arms. But they were taught to stab, and why they were taught to stab? Because stabbing is more tactical than slicing. Because if something bad happens in the middle of a stab, you can just pull off. But in a slice, notice how you have to come up in this whole motion and switch, and you're stuck with that motion. You can't peel out. So you can you can sort of peel out of it, but you can do it much easier with this. And also, why they taught that is because of the phalanx position. I'm going into too much of a history lesson here, but just thought, food for thought. What's your name? Weapons education. I forget your name. Anyways, so now that you have a katana, I'd say if I had to take a sword into battle, if we still fought with stuff like these, or hey, you know, zombie apocalypse happened, I would take a baseball bat. But if I had to take a sword, I would stick with this and not a katana, because this is heavier than a katana, and it can still do blunt force way better than that can. So this will probably be my favorite sword design someday. I hope I can get a real one of these when I have the money. So, CIT Archer reminding you to walk the Christian walk and carry a loaded Glock.